The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Paoli with Design Manager. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. Please, feel free to put in the chat and the questions if you're having any audio issues or anything at all throughout the presentation, of course, as usual. So today we have a really, really interesting topic, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. So I have brought Brad Clinard in today to speak about financial planning. Today is going to be centered around some timely topics, which is really cool that he just, revised his presentation for us. Brad and I met last fall during High Point Market, and I was kind of blown away by the way we instantly connected about the passion that we have for helping interior designers. I'm a very strong believer in the design community and helping designers bridge the gap between creativity and business acumen. So I wanted to bring Brad and all his inspiration to our designer base. So before we dive into those timely topics, I'll just give you a little summary of Brad's background to give him a little introduction. So Brad is a native of High Point, North Carolina, the furniture capital of the world. He has a background in both economics and psychology, graduating from UNC Charlotte, where he also played NCAA tennis. He joined his family's financial practice a decade ago and is a certified financial planner with a designation in behavioral financial advice. Brad is an independent thinker driven by curiosity and a passion to help others. Brad is married to a creative pastry chef, and they enjoy exploring food and culture. Brad's passion is adventure travel to remote and beautiful places. He believes that money should be used as a tool to enrich our lives and encourage others to pursue their version of an abundant life. He is quickly becoming a known resource for designers across the country, so I am looking forward to him sharing his story with us today. Brad, you can take it away.
Well, Lindsay, thanks so much for the invitation, and it's been I've enjoyed over the last year to get to know you, and I think the work that you are doing with Design Manager has helped so many designers, and I hope today is a good resource. So thank you so much. To start with, I'll just share real quickly today. It is a very timely event. I think this has been a time for me to really lean into some of my superpowers and trying to take care of myself to be able to show up heroically for others. So today, this is actually some adjustments to a presentation. So I've never given this one before, really wanting to make some changes last minute to provide some current information. So we're going to give a quick background of what financial design means, how it can empower you. I'm going to go over 3 secrets of the financial industry, talk a little about the investing in the current environment, and then want to make sure that we give away something fun for everybody. So 5 ways to spend money scientifically to increase your happiness. And also my real hope for today is that in the midst of the challenges we're facing, that we can all see that finances can be fun. To start with, I wanted to share just a little bit, as Lindsay mentioned, I am from High Point, which is the furniture capital of the world. We are very sad to say that this will be the first market canceled since World War II and only the second since 1909. But growing up in High Point, all of my parents' friends were in furniture, it seemed, and it really gave me a curiosity for what is this design. And we learned very early that design has the power to impact and change the world. And so I think that designers are real superheroes. It also gave me an innate curiosity for understanding what my parents did from a young age. So the first well-kept secret of the financial industry is we all have a plan, but then we realize that almost nothing turns out as we expect. And I think that if we think back on our lives, we've all had moments where we go through transition, uncertainty, fear. Right now, there's a lot of panic. It's really, this is, you may talk to a financial planner that says, well, the next 30 years is going in this direction, but the reality is we expect changes. So as Lindsay shared, my background, I studied in college was both economics and psychology while I played tennis. And so I was actually graduated in the midst of the great recession. So unemployment hit 10% right when I was getting out of college. So very early on, I understood about these dynamics of uncertainty in our lives. So naturally, the first thing that I did graduating in this time was to go hike the Appalachian Trail. When I came back, Dad said he really needed some help, and I joined my dad's wealth management practice. So we were very successful, but I call this the dark years. So I know a lot of people that are small business owners feel like that at one point they were in this cycle where my cycle was trying to be the smartest investment kid in the room. Then I would crawl home exhausted. By Friday afternoon, I would just collapse, binge watch TV, and then just dreaded crawling myself back into the office on Monday morning. So my first transformation was really personal. Joseph Campbell is one of my personal heroes. He was a professor of myth and mythology. What some people don't know that he's famous for is he was George Lucas's mentor. George Lucas, of course, creating in the foundation of Star Wars was built on Joseph Campbell's myth history. So the first thing I did is I realized I had to get off the sofa, and the way that I did that was following my bliss. So now every 6 months, I take an adventure trip somewhere in the world. And this really has led to our slogan, which is intentional planning, abundant living. So over time, the growth that I saw personally shifted to become a question, which was how could I have an impact to encourage other people? So the question we always ask designers is, what is your abundant life story? A lot of people say, well, why did we choose designers? And that I want to give just a little bit of background. Of course, there's the connection with High Point, which was my natural network, but also I had a business coach who asked me a very important question. He said, what would you do if you could never retire differently with your business? And I think unequivocally, the answer was I wanted to help more fun people. And one of my most enjoyable clients to work with happened to be a designer in High Point. And so I see four things that really connected me to the design community was designers are often fun, creative people, but I think what sometimes people don't realize is designers have some of the biggest hearts of anyone that I know. They are also real business owners. I think so many people, and Lindsay had a great presentation last year at Market highlighting that what were things that people have said to you as a design owner, and too often it's design has been seen as a hobby or a side job or something just to watch. You must have a job like HGTV, but we know that these are real businesses, and often my industry has neglected the needs of small business owners. So to me, this was really an intersection of the passion that I have my skill set with psychology and economics, and also a need for designers to be served in a different way. So now we are very plugged in with some of the industry groups like Interior Design Society and ASID. The first thing that I wanted to really start the conversation is people say, well, I don't know where a financial designer fits in my team. So we've created this roadmap to say that when interior designers reach a very successful point in their business, there's often three relationships that are very important. I think first and foremost, it starts with the business coach. The business coach, by and large, focuses on processes, making sure that you have the right mindset, and that you're executing your business plan. Once you become profitable, then you want to work with a bookkeeper and a CPA to understand your profitability. I think that's where a design manager comes in to provide an incredible technology suite to help you run a lot of your business in one place. And then third, this is really what's been missing is once a designer is successful in their business and they have extra cash flow or they have investments that need to be managed, the financial designer comes in to help us create a sustainable lifestyle and to help us focus on this concept of financial freedom and defining what that means. Back to the psychology, we really understand that some of my clients resonate with a left brain, highly analytical, Other clients want to focus on the creative right brain side. Even the clients that I have, and there are some designers that are very analytical and enjoy spreadsheets. However, when we're in a state of, that we're at a point with the economy where our time is our most valuable resource. If we can free up time so that designers can focus more on the creativity, it's a win-win. So starting to think about how we have added some value to the design industry, and this was something that Lindsay and I first talked about, was we've put out two pieces that we're going to kind of touch on today in touch on some very high levels. I think that we may do a webinar in the future to come back to some of the foundational planning. But the Designer Dozen was a piece that we created where we identified 12 of the key challenges that are unique to interior designers as they pursue financial abundance. So for today, we're going to talk about communication styles, the challenge of being disorganized, that we need a financial plan that's not simply goal-driven, and helping through transitions. Normally, I don't talk about investments on our first call, but I'm going to talk about a few investment ideas, as not ideas, but how we should approach investing in times of uncertainty. And the second part is the 10 keys to a financial foundation. This is a PDF document that Lindsay can make available to everybody, or you could reach out to me. But for today, and some designers say, well, there are so many moving parts to my financial life, I don't want to think about it. So the metaphor that I've always used is it's like a home. You would never buy a home that had an amazing master bedroom, amazing kitchen, an awesome dining room, but did not have a kitchen and did not have a guest bathroom. It's almost unimaginable. And in the same way, if someone says, what are the keys to my financial foundation? Yes, there's things that we have to work through, but we do have to address to make sure that each of those pieces are in place, just like we want to have good design in each of the rooms of our home. So the first thing that we always talk about is communication preferences. And this is where we start our conversations with every client. By definition, there are four, we are split into four major types of communication styles. So if an advisor, or even if your spouse does not know your primary communication style, we say there's only a 25% chance that they will connect or communicate with you in a way that resonates. So the first thing we do is understand what is the designer's communication preference. If you're very analytical driven, then we will share with you detailed spreadsheets. But if you are more social driven or more driven by values, there are ways that we can communicate with you that may resonate and make more sense. When you're speaking with a spouse about money, and also when you're speaking with an advisor, moments of high volatility like we're seeing right now is really when it's critical that not only are the numbers right, but that you have an advisor and a spouse that you're communicating with effectively. Next slide here. Normally I show a video about this, and I say that the details really matter. I know that in the design industry, so many people are saying, well, I have clients that are shopping online. These two chairs, they look the same. One is over $500. One could be bought on online for about 70 bucks. And the details really do matter. I have a video, and I'm not going to show the video today. I'm going to flip through here. They said with the webinars, there's too many people on the webinars and not to show video if possible. The key is if you start jumping on these chairs, the two that are the knockoffs break, whereas the one that is the high quality stands up. I think there's two things to say about this. Is it's the same with your financial plan. And also, this is a key to the value that you provide your clients in communicating. We know that there's terrible stories about furniture falling on children and causing deaths. Don't ever underestimate the value that you can provide as a designer in impacting people's lives. And with that being said, I do think it is really important to see that good organization is easy to identify. This was a picture of my aunt's daughter's closet. My aunt is a corporate executive, and she has a lot on her plate. So she hired an interior designer and was able to get her daughter's room looking much, much better. It's really easy to see this when it's our home. What we find though is that a lot of people don't see it when it's their financial life. Um, I've been into people's houses before that have all sorts of clutter. So the first thing that we recommend for clients after we take the values and communication preference is to have everything organized in one location. We like to visualize this. And I think this is a thing that everybody can do at home, or they can work with a financial designer, but putting all of our finances on one page where we can visualize everything in one location allows us to more easily determine where there are financial headaches that need to be addressed and also opportunities to pursue. So this brings us to the second secret about the financial industry, which is that compliance always dictates the lowest common denominator. And what this means in practice is it set the industry up to be focused on goals-based planning. And as a prior athlete, I have no problem with goals, but they've set up goals because it's easy for any advisor to say, do you want to save $1 million, retire at age 65, and pay for your children's education? However, we believe that planning should be based on values. Values are more consistent over your lifetime. They connect deeper to your soul, to what's most important to you as a person. So when our financial plan is based on our values, not the advisor's values and not goals, we're more grounded over time. And this actually has real life implications. So I always like to say the result of goals-based planning is that we're told things like we can't have coffee. There was a real famous book a few years back called The Latte Factor, and essentially said that if you stop drinking coffee, that you could save $3 to $4 a day, and if you invest that over time and have great returns, you'll have a huge amount saved for retirement. And this is where our industry really leads, is if we tell clients that they can't have any fun, no shoes, no travel, no bathroom remodel. And the reason why is I need your spreadsheet to look good 30 years from now. And I've just never felt like this really seems fair, especially if you leave the advisor's office and maybe there's a lot of fancy sports cars sitting out front. So how we do with values-based planning is we take the top 5 values for you. If you're married or have a partner, we'll take it for you and your spouse. And then we like the 50-30-20 format for budgeting. We typically think that budgeting is about a 4-letter word. We try to avoid budgeting when we can, so we like to use broad numbers. And please understand that these numbers are a target to work towards. Most people are not able to save 20% at the very beginning. But what we find is if we can keep our essential expenses to 50, then we fund our lifestyle expenses. These are tied directly to your values. So maybe your value is wanting to enjoy the social component of going to get a cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you want to buy shoes. I had a client that wanted to buy a sports car because she associated it with being fun. That's where our lifestyle money should be used for. And that way we're not injecting our values as advisors on clients. And the last, we want to save 20%. That 20% savings also helps us get through these challenging moments. So this brings us to the last secret of the financial industry, which people are psychologically wired to crave certainty. But the reality is we like to say, there are no crystal balls, no easy buttons, and no silver bullets. The only certainty is the certainty of uncertainty. And of course, we are seeing this in the markets right now. But outside of the greatest investment idea that I can share is we believe that financial stability is all about making good choices through moments of transition. And this could be anything from when you start or sell your business, if you're helping aging parents, if you receive an inheritance. And there's two types of transition that specifically affect uh, interior designers more than often. By and large, there are more female interior designers, and this is, I have clients that are male interior designers, but there are two transition points that we're very aware of. The first is called gray divorce. It's a very sad reality that on average, the younger generations are seeing declining rates of divorce or stability, which is a good thing. But the fastest growing segment of the population is that's going through divorce is those 50 and above. And we've actually seen over 100% increase in the last 25 years. It's really sad to see individuals divorce for all sorts of reasons, but there are financial reasons where at the moment of your life, if you're in your 60s and you go through a divorce, you're becoming extremely vulnerable at a very difficult time when you need financial stability. And the second is being widowed. Um, Widowhood is something that impacts women more frequently than men. So 80% of men will die married, and the flip side of that is 80% of women die single. Why this? We always think, I think, as a society, that this is something that happens later in life, but many people are not aware that the average age that someone is first widowed is 59. So one of our specialties is, and this goes back to my focus on the psychology, we have a three-step process in which we help people move through moments of transition. Anytime we experience grief, there is a lot to process. So our process is grief, growth, and grace. And it really helps us to slow down, take a deep breath, and regain our balance when we're doing at first, when we're in the moments of the greatest emotional trauma, we're our most vulnerable. They call it the fog of grief sometimes. Oftentimes, we do not want to make any financial decisions in that first 6 month to 1 year period. But as we go through this process, we can reclaim a sense of identity, find new hobbies that we like. I think what's amazing right now is I think of two clients that have gone through bad divorces and now are in RVs traveling the country, and it's always exciting to get pictures of their adventures. So now we're going to transition to kind of the update for where are we right now. And first and foremost, when it comes to investing, I would say that there are hundreds of ways to be successful as an investor. And we've always heard that you want to buy low and sell high. However, there is a key to successful investing, no matter what your strategy is, and that is sticking to your plan. It's all about navigating the cycle of fear and greed. And until we're in these moments, like we're facing right now, people oftentimes don't realize how strong these emotions can be. So as we, this is a curve that we go through and experience these different types of emotions. So when we first buy an investment, we're optimistic, and over time we go through excitement and we get thrilled and we reach a state of euphoria when the investment starts to show benefit, or we start to have more money. And that is the point where there is always the maximum risk, is when people start to become euphoric. And on the flip side, when we start to have things go the other way, we go through starting to experience when our investments go down, we might start to feel anxious, we want to deny it, and then fear leads to panic. That's where we're starting to see some of the panic tendencies right now. I know Warren Buffett used to always say, you want to buy when there's blood in the street. And what he means by that is you want to buy when there's panic. You want to buy when other people are fearful. You want to sell when people are optimistic. So this is important to keep in context. What I will share is in the the last week, I know a lot of my family has been enjoying all sorts of memes. So I think my favorite was that how frequently we touch our faces. My wife has Irish in her background, so she said I have to stay 6 feet away from her. Um, but in the fact of we're all wanting to have a little bit of fun with this, there is also a reality that this is a very difficult time. This shows the Dow Jones Industrial Average for last week. It was the most volatile week that we've ever seen in history as far as the most up and down point days. And I will say a lot of people get excited when they see the market up 9%. I try to remember that 9% is a number that I like to see for a year, not for a day in the market. It's not indicative of a healthy market. So this is the type of environment that really pushes people to ask themselves, where are we on the emotional curve of going through the cycle of euphoria, fear, and greed? But first, I really want to talk about something which is a really challenging question to answer, which is, why is it so painful for me when my investments are down? And a lot of clients that I'm holding hands with, they are experiencing difficult moments. They look and the fear starts to take over. And I think there is something that's going on here that's more deeper than the fear of the coronavirus. That is definitely a headline risk, and there is uncertainty around that. But ultimately, we have three desires that are, I call it common humanity. We want to feel loved, we want to feel a sense of belonging, and we want to feel safe. And as a culture, as a society, we are too often, our feeling of safety is tied to our financial resources. We think subconsciously, so many of us have a narrative that if I only have X dollars, then I'll be shielded from challenges. Working with families across the wealth spectrum, I can attest from personal experience, even families that have more wealth than they will ever be able to spend, they still face very difficult emotional challenges tied to these three common desires that we all have. So the key is to really become aware, is the pain that we're experiencing tied to a realistic need of the needs that we have for money, which could be true. I always say that money is a lot like oxygen. If we don't have enough, it's a real problem. But at a certain sense, once we reach a state of financial stability and security, it does become a deeper issue. So we want to make sure that if we don't feel safe, that the uncertainty doesn't lead to panic. And panic occurs when we lose our sense of agency. Agency is really our belief that we are in control of our present and our future. What I will share, and this is, I think, critical at this time, is the way that we can connect to a sense of being loved and a sense of belonging is to connect with others. So if you're not feeling safe, it may not be the best time to make radical adjustments to your investment portfolio, but it is a time to think about the things that we're grateful for and to connect to the people virtually, connect to the people that we love the most, and to foster a sense of community and belonging. So one thing that we do to help clients create clarity is we do use something that's called stress testing. So there are econometric models that project if I have X portfolio, what do I expect to have happen in different world events? So right now we have a scenario for coronavirus. There's ones that we've looked at in the past for what happens around Brexit, what happens around if we get into a global conflict with Iran, what happens if oil prices decrease. So this provides us some clarity about what we actually own in our investing. And I think clarity is one step towards moving towards agency. So this will either be positive for people or this will be concerning, but we're big believers in telling the truth as we see it. This is just one econometric model, but it is one econometric model that has looked at what are possible scenarios of the coronavirus. And this is based on last week's close. It is not a prediction, and we should not be thinking that any of this is personal investment recommendations. This is simply just looking at what the S&P 500 is, which is a broad basket of US stocks that some use as a benchmark for the investment market. And we think that there's three different outcomes. The baseline level is if we do think that at the current level, the market has built in that we expect GDP to be very difficult for the third quarter. I think it could be very negative. And we think that this really bakes into the idea that for the next 6 to 8 weeks, economic activity is very slow and recover. I do think that by the end of the year, some of the economists that I've listened to, they are very optimistic that they don't foresee this lasting more than 6 to 8 months. If we look at construction, and I know construction is very important for interior designers, the last 3 months before this coronavirus came in were the strongest 3 months going back to 2007. The overall economy leading into the coronavirus was very positive, and so I think that there is a lot of reason to think that we could have a sharp recovery if this stays in that 6 to 8 week window. However, I also am very realistic that there is potential for further downside. There has been discussion around what if this draws out 6 months. I think that is potentially overstated, but I'm not a medical doctor, and this would be the case. The econometric model is showing that what would happen if we have a repeat of the Spanish flu. This would be a scenario where we see 40% of the country becoming infected and a 2% death rate. What I will point out is when the Spanish flu occurred, we did not even know that hand washing was important. So I think that this is the framework we look at non-emotionally, and I think during these times it's very important to stay in control of what we can control and stay optimistic. But it's important to know what you own. And that's where I shared with Lindsay was we do offer portfolio stress testing that we can send a report. If we receive a copy of a statement, we have a framework that we can give out reports that are, I think the entire report, including the disclaimers, is about 12 pages. So my industry is notorious for sending out one-page documents that nobody can read. We can stress test looking at these different scenarios to give designers clarity around what they actually own in their portfolio today compared to a benchmark, and it gives us an understanding of what we own. Once we know what we own as an individual, then we are better informed and educated to make decisions going forward. Again, we cannot provide any financial advice or investment advice for individuals that are not clients. So if you have questions, you should speak directly to your investment professional. And last, we did want to leave on an upbeat. And so one of the books that I have shared with clients in the past is Happy Money. And essentially, there's a lot of research that says, well, up to about $75,000, more money is better. But after that point, more money does not make us happier. I met Dr. Dunn a couple years back, and she had some incredible research that really there are 5 ways that we can spend our money to increase happiness, and that is to buy experiences. So for me, that's adventure travel. Make it a treat. The idea for that is I always share the example of a sports car. Clients will say, well, should I buy a sports car? The science would say, if you're going to drive a sports car every day, you will become accustomed to it and you will not enjoy it as much. But if you have a daily driver and you use your sports car on the weekend, it stays in the treat category, and it can continue to provide you a lot of happiness. Buying time. The classic example, and of course this is something that I did not want to do at first, but now have embraced, is I found a woman to help clean around the house. That way I'm not spending my Saturdays cleaning the house and keeping it in order. That allows me to use my time to do other things. Pay now and consume later. On my adventure trips, I always pay for them about 6 months ahead of time. That way, when I get to the trip, there's no financial stress. And last, invest in others. Investing in others can mean a lot of different things to different people. We have our time, talent, and treasure. So time and talent we may want to invest in treasure. We can share some of our wealth through philanthropic needs. So for today, we wanted to kind of wrap up and say, as we enter this new decade for design, we encourage you to see money as an abundant resource, be intentional about that, and also see your design business as a platform to impact and make others' lives better. So that wraps up kind of our pre-prepared statements for today, and I think we're going to take a few questions.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was very enlightening, very timely. We had planned a longer presentation about some other planning topics, but I think we're actually going to do that in the fall, and we're going to pick a date, so we will let everybody know when that's going to be, but that'll be a little bit more in depth. Look at some actual financial planning, more of a deep dive, I guess. So I think Brad did an amazing job. I don't have any questions coming in right now, but we can hang for another minute or two if anybody wants to send any specific questions in. But I think
one thing, Lindsay, that I didn't put in my presentation, but that we were talking about before, was sort of like, what are some actionable things that interior designers who are independent business owners can be doing to protect themselves during this economic recession? And we talked back and forth, so I will just recap a few of those points if that would be if you would think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we kind of we talked about a few things. Is number one, I want people to stay safe, take care of your family. And then we really need to have clarity around what our emergency fund is. The emergency fund is both on the personal and on the business. On the business side, the number that I always hear is a lot of business owners try to have 2 to 3 months worth of expenses. That helps us navigate these periods where we may have low revenue. Of course, that is challenging if we have not already planned ahead. The second would be to really look at our expenses. This is a catch-22 because as we start to pull in our expenses, it has a ripple effect across the economy. So it does slow down the economy. At the same time, we have to be very careful about how we are spending money as business owners so that we can survive this period of time. Because cash is king during these moments. The one, I think everybody should be talking to their HR department. If you reach a point that you have to start cutting back on staffing, it is important that you do that in accordance with the HR policy. And I know one thing has been, it is important to make sure that we do layoffs and not just hourly reductions if
Very good point.
because that affects people from their ability to receive unemployment. We need to stay aware of the headlines as far as the numbers that the government are putting out. The federal government is going to be taking action. We're not exactly sure what that is as of yet, but they are going to be taking action. So please stay informed and talk with your HR professionals. And the last, I always like to talk about Isaac Newton. He actually was it was the middle of the Black Plague that he was able to come up with a theory of gravity. So he was quarantined in his house. He could not be at Cambridge. And I think it's a great story, which is really what are we going to each do with this time that we have to be quarantined, whether it's the next 3 weeks or if it turns into being 3 months. Let's be leaders for the people that for our employees. Let's be leaders for our clients and continue to show up. And I've heard a couple designers say that this is a time for them to invest in building out parts of their business that they have not had time to do, and think about ways to repackage. I really appreciate, Lindsay, you sharing this opportunity for me to share my message today. But I know a lot of designers are saying, well, now that we're all stuck in the comfort of our home, can I have a package to maybe let people that are sitting at home renovate a room to be a home gym, or let's organize the home office, or help somebody set up a coffee bar since we're not getting out. So be creative, keep in touch, let people know, connect to that community, and definitely stay safe.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Brad. It is a good time if you have time that's free. I know a lot of people are feeling that time stress now because of maybe kids being home from school or things like that. But if you can, and work does slow down, you can double down on your business, and you can really get to some of those projects that maybe you had put on the shelf for a while, and you can really maybe come out with an even better revenue stream, when we get out of this period of time. So I think that's great. I think those tips are great. We actually did put a blog post out earlier today that has some tips as well. Obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about remote working for your employees, since we're a cloud-based company. But there's definitely some, policies and protocols that you want to have in place with your employees so that they know what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Simple tips like that, but that's at blog.designmanager.com. We are actually doing an offer right now as well to help designers through this time period. So if you want to add any additional users, if you need to have more of your staff be able to work remotely, we're doing an offer where you don't pay for those until May. So any new clients, old clients, been with us for 20 years, been with us for 20 days, doesn't matter. You just need to let us know. So go to your account management portal if you're on Pro, hit the add users. You won't be billed for those until May, or you can talk to myself, of course, if your situation's a little bit more in depth and need a little bit more help. I'm happy to help anybody that needs it. So yeah, I think that we do. Yes. So we did have one question come in about seeing the first couple slides again. Brad, how do you want to handle that? Do you want me to send those out, or did you want to just run through those real quick again, or how do you want to work that?
Was there a specific slide in general? I can provide some of these slides to you, and I don't know where you will
Okay.
post those.
Yeah, if you want me to email some of them out, if there's any sensitive ones, obviously you can pull those out, maybe, but whatever we can, we'll send to you. Brad has some really nice handouts too that you'll be getting as well as a follow-up.
And I believe that, so I can be reached at highpointfinancialdesign.com. That has all access to reach me.
Okay.
My email is brad.clinard@hpfinancialdesign.com. So we're glad to set up calls to answer any questions as well.
Okay.
And the handouts have our contact information as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I will get that together and we will send a email blast to everybody who attended today with your contact information and with your handouts.
And I just encourage everybody, I think it's moments like these that are a test of our mindset, and that's where we can fall into scarcity or abundance. And I think it's a time to be leaders and to focus as much as we can on the things that we have to be abundant and grateful for.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. We appreciate your time, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We're very appreciative of your time as well. And please stay tuned. Blog.designmanager.com, and we will be emailing. Thanks a lot, guys.